Let's bait.
All right, here we are. We're back again. Hello, hello. I've had a little bit of a break here. The last video was on the disappearance of Rel. Rel's gone. He's no longer working on the game, so we've had about 10 days or so. QA is coming up soon. I'm gonna do that probably this coming week, and then yeah, this video popped into my feed today. I went through it once, I think, and read some of the comments, and I thought, well, this will probably be interesting to do because there's some stuff in here in the comments, especially from people talking about their hot takes. Okay, so this is the actual PlanetSide 2 hot takes video by Zealous. Now, I think I mentioned before in one of the VOD clips or whatever that I feel like Zealous has taken a little bit of a based turn lately, so I'd be curious to see what this video will entail. Has he come all the way around, or is he still holding on to some stuff that is kind of weird? So, I don't know. I always go into these, I think people try to pander a little bit. Some of these creators try to pander a little bit too much to their base, and I get why they do that. But some of the stuff is just outright, like, not true. Or only true from a very small point of view that is kind of irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. So I'm going to start the video, and we're going to go from there. Bap.
Thing here that you strongly, vehemently disagree with and are frankly annoyed by, then I have not done my job here. I'm going to go off the deep end in this video, but let's start with some moderate hot takes and then...
So I think maybe the point of this video is to just stir debate or something to get conversation going, but I think most of the conversations and most of the takes, I think most of you guys have probably seen before, or if something's been discussed. I know probably a lot of these I've already talked about, but let's see what it's...
and walk away forward. First off, I think that Capture the Flag should not only be deleted, but also OSHA. I think that SME should be revarded. Back to what it was like in 2020, I only really got a...
So Capture the Flag is something that, like, one of the few bases, some of the few bases that were still enjoyable for a player like me and stuff was to go, like, occasionally you would get, like, a good tower fight that wasn't, completely unplayable. And I think some of my favorite memories of some of the fights in the game were at towers. And a lot of the, like, I'm thinking of the Bastion in particular. I had a lot of fun fights that I enjoyed at the Bastion because there's a lot of angles to play from, and it's just fun, or it was fun, or it was one of the only ways to still have fun in the game. But over time, you saw towers just be completely gutted and nerfed because I've always said that they changed towers so many times, and they've changed biolabs so many times because shitters get farmed at towers and biolabs. So naturally, with the way Rel developed the game, you had to pad the walls and you had to soften the game for shitters. So you could no longer have a point inside the tower. It's replaced with an SCU, which SCUs in towers and stuff I've always hated because, like, at least they could still capture the base with the 2 outside points. They didn't even really have to come in the tower to get that 3rd point, but most of them always did, and that gave something for you to do, really, because oftentimes the fights that you're deploying into to fight these Zergs and shit at the towers, the tower is probably, even the tower is not safe itself. Being in the tower, just walking out of the spawn shield, it's really not even that safe with the amount of numbers, and depending on which tower it is and what continent it's on, there's vehicles. Fucking, some guy has spent 25 hours determining the best fucking angle for firing his tank shell to a to a specific point to farm people in the spawn. Yeah, but you could still kind of have, like, an infantry fight up the stairways and stuff, and you could actually get into some infantry combat that was kind of enjoyable. Well, of course, that has to be taken out of the game. So we're going to take, I think this happened to most of the towers, but we're going to take the points that sit in the towers, and we're going to move them outside, because it's not already enough that that the people with the larger force has the advantage, like coming in, and all they have to do is grab the outer points, which some of them are way the fuck far. Like think of Sero, like it gets to a point where there's really realistically there's no actual reason to go inside the tower except to for the people that are attacking that actually want to play the game and fight people, or hack the terminals and stuff. There's really no point, or I mean, just to get the third point to make the cap go faster. Realistically, for most people that don't want the fight or anything, they can just sit on those 2 points and they'll win eventually. Now, granted, the timer is a lot longer, and there's been a lot of times where all we had was the A point inside the tower, and I still had some of the better fights that I can remember in tower bases like that. But then when you take the point completely out of the tower and replace it with an SCU that, makes it so you can no longer spawn it just gives more advantage. It just incentivizes zerging the piss out of everything more. And I've always hated that. I've always hated that, there's no thought given to how people actually play the game, right? And how people actually play the game is they get in a big fucking Zerg ball and they roll down a lattice lane, and your faction Zerg ball is somewhere else because the Zerg balls don't want to fight each other ever. Sometimes they're forced to because they're in the middle of some god-awful map and they're stuck there for hours, but that's just the nature of the game. But these outer lattice lanes and stuff just devolve into Zerg blob against like the handful of defenders who are actually going back to farm these people. And that's what you're doing, because that's the type of player that specifically plays in that way. The guys in the Zerg ball, they're all terrible. So you go to those fights and you just farm terrible players. That's because they deserve it, And you want to test yourself against the numbers and be like, well, you're not going to get this for free. You're going to have to work for it. And you're going to get frustrated because you think you should just win outright because you have numbers, because the game has no balance whatsoever. And then they get frustrated, and it's a cool interaction, I think. People might think it's like a toxic interaction or whatever, but, the point of playing a PvP game is to ultimately, PvP and fight the other people. But for whatever reason, there's a whole bunch of people in this game who are completely uninterested in that. I think replacing the A point in the towers and putting SCUs in there to cut off the spawning even faster, and all that shit is just cancer. And it just incentivizes dumping more pop on a base. And then, now, the towers that maybe were still playable, I think, that had A points still in the towers, we're just going to shit all over them by adding this capture the flag mechanic, which, who asked, bro? Like, who asked for this to be in the game? I don't know. I know Rel likes to say he loves tribes and everything, but it's just another one of these weird things that I don't think really... If you want to do that, like, somewhere else, like, don't take bases that are already okay, like towers and stuff, and destroy them and make them less playable, just to not have shitters have to like interact with the building like actually anymore. Like, there's no point. I mean, all it is every time is just some light assault coming in, and it's just cancer, and it's really not that intuitive. And every time I go to a tower base, like that's one of these capture the flag bases now, I'll be there for like 30-40 seconds and be like treating it like I've treated it the rest of the time in the game, like, oh, I'm at a tower, blah, 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 I'm going here doing that. And then I realize, like, this base is ruined, and then you just don't. So the next time you go to look at that base and you're like, well, I mean, granted, there's still people there to kill, but the objective of it has completely changed, and I think not necessarily for a good reason. It's more this weird like experimentation stuff with things that you probably shouldn't be fucking around with, and I think Rel did a lot of that. But yeah, I'd be revert all the towers, put all the A points back in the towers. Sero, take that stupid field fucking point and move it back into the fucking tower, because it's bad enough. It's bad enough when you're defending against a Zerg at Sero when they already get basically C point for free out in the fucking mountains because it's, 300-400 meters away. And then You got to get out of the fucking tower, go down and push. The B point's fine, but that other point that was put in the field to give vehicles something to do, I've complained about that for years, and it's just more stupid shit to cater to people who just don't want to fight people, and it's designed from people that don't understand how people actually play the game. So yeah, I'm all for. I don't think that's a hot take. Like I don't really know too many people that enjoy Capture the Flag. They just get annoyed by it and don't want to play at it. Same thing for Osher. Osher effectively killed the game for me in the last year. I've barely played the game in the last year. I played a little bit during Arsenal update just for all that stuff, and very sparingly since probably August or September of last year. And I was mostly an off hours player, and Osher on Emerald absolutely murdered off hours play for me. So essentially, Osher killed the game for me, or whatever was left interest wise in the game. Because every time I would log on, I'm logging on off hours, early morning or something. Oh, 6 hours of this terrible continent that no one asked for. So great. I know they've updated it. It's like Osher, what is it? Osher 2.0 or Osher 3.0 or something. But the stink I don't think the stink's not ever coming off that continent, and it's still not. It's not enjoyable to play on. Because all it is just like infiltrators and vehicles, and that's. I mean, it's just cancer. So yeah, I'm down for the first two here.
Playing that version of Esamir for about 6 months.
And think about it, yeah, Esamir 2, the Shattered Warp Gate completely fucked up the continent for no reason other than rich storytelling and lore, which this game, I mean, I don't understand why we put focus on the most useless features that this game has. The biggest features this game has is open world, big PvP combat, or big like FPS game combat. That's what the focus should always be on. And when you start to dabble in this little stupid roleplay lore shit, that's how you start destroying things that are. I'm not saying Esamir was great by any means. But it's definitely worse now after it got its makeover for whatever we did. Containment sites are garbage. They're not fun. They're boring as shit. They're unenjoyable. They're unintuitive to most normal players. I know most casual players are stupid. But they're unintuitive in general. Like if you have to put arrows on the floor in your base to show everybody where to go, like I know how to get around. It's simple for me to learn. But if you think about your design and you're designing it and you have to put arrows everywhere because your players are so stupid and your base is kind of unintuitive in some ways, which I don't necessarily think it's that unintuitive, but apparently the player base does. I've had some farms and I've had some fun in containment sites, but ultimately, would I just rather it be a biolab? Yeah, probably. But again, you can't have biolabs because shitters get farmed at biolabs, and I mean. I don't know what they thought would happen with containment sites because shitters get farmed in containment sites too. So I guess good job. One thing that really bothers me about containment sites is the mini map in the game has no way to show you the different levels that someone is in a map. Like I'm thinking back to like Battlefield 4, which is a game that came out in 2013 that had that distinction on the little arrows like you see in this screen, like this little fucking where's my mouse? You see this arrow here? It would either be darker or I think lighter. There would be some different indication as to tell you you could glean whether the guy was above you or below you. Now, this game, for whatever reason, still doesn't do anything like that. And they keep we have these weird, like, bases with 2 and 3, 1, 2, 3. Basically, like, you don't really ever get much more than 3 floors, but you kind of have to guess because the directional audio, a lot of the times too, will come straight through ceilings at you because the audio guy that works on the game is deaf, or I don't really know what he does because the audio in the game for 3D directional audio, I don't know if it's the equalizer or something with the sound balance, but this game used to have one of the best 3D directional audio sound engines that I've ever heard in an FPS game. Dating back a long time, and then between the PS4 code merge and all this shit, it just seems like I can hear friendly footsteps all the time, friendly jetpacks, and then everything else, no matter the size of the fight, no matter the channels I'm running, no matter the different sound setups I'm running. I have multiple different sound setups that I run, equalizer stuff, so equalizer, no equalizer, balance, it makes no difference, honestly. It seems like all the sound stuff in the game has just been murdered for the sake of big sound explosions, and it even that's fine. Uh, if all you're ever at is a 96 plus, like I don't necessarily expect to hear a singular soldier's footsteps next to me in a 96 plus, but when I'm at a 1 to 12 and I'm one versus two other guys, in the middle of the night, I expect to hear footsteps. Sometime, very, 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 very rarely do I ever. And it sucks because I know a lot of people blame this whatever sound bug, that the thing that happens with the underwater sound after a certain amount of time, but that's not at all what I'm talking about, and that's not at all what some people are talking about. That's not a sound bug that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the engine itself, and the way that the levels are balanced is completely fucked up. And yeah, I blame. I think the sound guy is Humberto something. Yeah, somebody at that guy and ask him why sounds that are supposed to play do not play, and I'm sure he'd give you like a question mark or something. But I'm sure he doesn't even play the game, so who the fuck cares? But yeah, that I get back to that with the sound stuff, because sound passes through. You'll notice this at like Nason's if you're downstairs, in the big ass fucking what is it, Sea Point, I think. Like you'll hear shit through the floor above you. Like that shouldn't happen. I shouldn't hear anything above me through the floor. Yeah, the sound in this game is fucked. So when you hear everything sometimes all around you that's just going through all the fucking ceiling and floor and shit at the same time, and you don't have the granularity on the minimap with this stuff, then I don't know. That's something that also has needed to be addressed for a long time, but because we're too busy making missions for people who somehow feel like they need to play this game to role play or do missions or something, like it's an RPG, like go get your quests and stuff. It's just a huge fucking massive waste of time. And it takes away from the core experience that the game could actually be. And that's one of my biggest gripes with the development of the game in the last over half decade.
Months, but within that 6 months I really enjoyed it. There were so many great bases that you took out. Shocktour did a great video on it. I definitely recommend everyone goes and checks that video out. It is actually crazy the bases the devs took out. I would much rather have
and replaced it with their vision of which all those bases suck ass. Like they just suck.
Slight warp gate disadvantages and being able to overcome that by playing well, than being forced to play something that's frankly way worse. Okay, so that's my moderately hot takes. The next one,
I don't think any of those takes are hot at all. I think those are very reasonable takes.
I actually think the Bastion should be reverted to how it used to be. The Bastion's essentially a mutilated...
See, I don't really agree with that, and I think there's 2 points here where I think it's the point after this on Orbital Strikes that he makes a point about the spectacle of them and how like not many people get to use them, and the spectacle of it kind of wears off, and then it's like, oh, it's just another cancer thing in the game. And I definitely attribute that same feeling to Bastions.
Garbage version of what it used to be. It sits on the edge of a hex, not adding to the spectacle of the game, which is what the Bastion was intended to do. It also...
I think it did it at first, but that's a reason why just adding things for the spectacle has no real staying power. It only has staying power on people that are brand new to the game and stuff. Like once you see the same thing, I had a guy in my comments in a few videos back asking about Orbital Strikes or something, because I think I had made a comment about them. It's in one of the Max PTS feedback videos that I did, and he was asking, well, you know, people talk about getting rid of the Orbital Strikes and everything, and what about the spectacle of it that someone sees? You know, they think it's cool. I was like, well, that's cool. You can design your whole game around, well, isn't that cool? But then at some point, it stops being cool, and it becomes mundane. And the only person it becomes cool to is the person that's brand new to the game, you know? And does it make the game better? Did Bastions make the game better in a certain way beyond the spectacle of it? I don't think so, because they were poorly fucking made, poorly implemented. They were absolutely bugged and broken in Cancer, especially at the start. Yeah, I guess it's interesting this is the problem with putting everything in your game to appeal to casuals. It's that oftentimes the things that you're putting in the game to appeal to casuals really don't add much depth to the gameplay, and they're inherently unhealthy for the core game, which is something I've always argued for. Is I always ask when they're gonna talk about something on a dev stream or something is, but how does it affect the core game? And when I see a Bastion and I go in, I'm like, well, here's what I think. If I go to that fight with the Bastion, number one, I'm gonna get fucking, and this is even like I think after the nerfs, it's gonna be annoying as fuck. It's gonna make the base not fun to play at. The performance at the base is gonna be however many times worse. I'm not at the point where I'm thinking about, oh, but Lex, isn't it cool though? What about the spectacle of it? I don't care. I don't care about that. I care about the gameplay, because the gameplay loop is what keeps people coming back. What keeps people coming back and keep people interested in the game. And it's the focus in the direction of the game for so many years has been, let's put this gimmick shit in the game to attract people to come back for, I don't know, maybe a month at most, and then they all leave again. It's why we can never the game can't, besides a global fucking pandemic, the game just can't maintain growth. Because the core gameplay loop is left to rot, and it's never touched at all. And people invariably burn out on that in and of itself. And then you have this shit added on top of it that makes that core gameplay loop less enjoyable in the first place for the sake of spectacle. That's just never, I don't think that's ever going to be sustainable in a game like this. Like you're going to get your FOMO people that log back in and play, and I'm sure they get the bundle sales and stuff out of that. But at the end of the day, Rel has said that, you know, his goal was to grow the game and add more players to it. Well, you failed. You didn't do that. And I think a lot of that has to do with the design goals you had in mind for the game. Didn't address really that many reasons why people quit, or why people found the core gameplay loop, or why informed, intelligent players find the core gameplay loop just antithetical to fun. And it's because there's a lot of fucking things in the game that are just not balanced and wielded. There's no hidden hand of balance guiding anything. So it just turns into cancer. And then you throw all the stupid stuff that you put in the game gimmick-wise on top of that, and it's like...
It doesn't create a meta game surrounding Colossuses and an air-to-air fight, fighting over the Bastion, being alive or not alive.
And that's a good point, too, is that most of the stuff that gets added to the game really does nothing to shift how people really play the game, or shift the metas that have evolved over time.
Because nobody really cares anymore. Nobody's going to commit an entire platoon worth of people trying to take down a Bastion just to stop someone from locking down a base. Not that that many people even use the Bastion anymore to sit on the edge of these hexes, because essentially there's no selfish reason to pull them anymore, because the Mauler Cannon's been taken out, remember? I think I've seen the Bastion like a few times in the last month. Realistically, it should have just had the Mauler Cannon decreased in terms of rate of fire by like 5.
It's just parasitic, poor game design. It's a shitty idea. I mean, I know they probably meant well with it, and they put work into it, and they had this grand idea for what it would be, but it's just not. And then, I mean, we all said it, but you don't want to listen to your best players, and you don't want to listen to the people who play the game the most and understand how people play the game and shit. You don't want to listen to them, and you just do whatever and hope, just throw shit at the wall and hope it sticks.
10 times, leave it as something where people can get, 20, 30 kills and that's it. And so at least there would be some selfish reason within those situations to pull a Bastion, whereas there just isn't now. We're going to get off dev changes in a second, but there's one more that I want to talk about, and that is orbital strikes and steel rains.
Okay, now the way he talks about orbital strikes is kind of exactly the same take I would have towards Bastions, but he makes it a point to separate them for some reason, which, although I think he thinks Bastions, he wants Bastions reverted to the way they were, but I think even if they were the way they were, they don't really add a lot to the game.
Both of these features make the organised part of PlanetSide 2 less rewarding, because you can steal rain on a base during the last 5 minutes and just win the alert by zarging. Or you can...
I mean, that's how it's always been. That would have been that way regardless. That's how people have won alerts for all of
just
time.
orbital strike something for kills or during the last 5 minutes of an alert. Again, orbital strikes were one of those things that was added for the spectacle and like an oh shit moment. But you don't want a casual player to log in and see that 10 times. That's no longer an oh shit moment, it's a oh no, not again moment.
See, now replace orbital strike with bastion. Do you see the point I'm trying to make here?
Before we step it up a notch, there's one other thing that I want to mention, and that's the hue within PlanetSide 2. On Esamir, there's literally like a blue filter over everything, and on Indar, likewise, there's a yellow filter over everything. It'd be way better if the devs just increase the saturation and the vibrancy of the game if they want to make blanket changes like this. Just blanket adding in a blue filter to everything is absurd. I also don't think it would be a hot take video without mentioning continent preference. For me, it's going to be Hosin, then Amerish, then Indar, then Esamir, then Osha. Now, of course,
I think that's fair.
so all of those are just preferences, just like people liking pineapple on pizza. Some people think the world's flat, and some people...
Yeah, but the people that think the world is flat, that's not a preference. That's just they're ignorant and uneducated. Or brainwashed by other uneducated, ignorant people. Or people who are trying to make
think
money.
that CBMC is a good outfit. Now, normally the devs are too incompetent to add in good implants, but with Berserker they did actually...
Now, someone makes a comment about not calling the devs incompetent because it's like a personal attack. I fundamentally disagree with that. When I say the developer's incompetent, and I don't necessarily... I guess I have to defend him here. I think it's totally okay to call a developer of a game incompetent. Because I'm not making a value statement about his character. I'm mentioning nothing about his character himself. I don't care about... I don't know the guy personally, but, we have the evidence and we see the work done and the thought process and everything that goes into what they're trying to deliver or the gameplay that they're trying to create. And it's actually really easy to see when someone just doesn't know what the fuck they're doing because they make the same really basic mistakes over and over again. I think it's totally fair. I don't know of any other industry of work or anything where you would see someone go to their job, continue to make the same mistakes over and over again, not correct them, and it would be unfair to call them incompetent. Why? I'm not sure why game devs get a pass there. Yeah, that's my piece on that. If the work they produce is substandard or just makes no sense or continually makes the game worse, I think it's totally fair to call their work incompetent. Now, you can say, I can say, oh, well, Rel is incompetent. When I say that, I'm not talking about like, oh, he should go home and kill himself in Minecraft or something like that. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not making a personal assessment of the man's character. I'm just saying that in this particular situation, when it comes to thinking and implementing good, sound ideas that make sense for his game, mistake-free, bug-free. Granted, bugs and stuff are going to happen, but to make the same fundamental errors over and over and over again, if that's not the definition of incompetence, then I don't know what it is. So you guys need to stop white knighting and defending these people who are actually incompetent. So don't apologize for that.
Actually managed to do it. And so Berserker is actually, to be honest, a little bit pay to win because the idea of grinding for 500, 1,000...
Berserker is really... And it's nerfed too. Berserker... Once I got Berserker, I got it on 2 VS characters. I never got it on my TR-NC character. But once I got Berserker, I never ran anything else, really, implant-wise. Nothing else would, actually replace that. So once you get it, it's good. So I can totally see, yeah, if you know how to play appropriately with Berserker, it's fucking insane. So I guess, yeah, you could call it pay to win. It was definitely pay to win if you fucking had it before the nerf. I think even after the nerf, it's still good.
1,000 hours to unlock Berserker is a bit absurd. And being able to circumnavigate that by paying 60 quid is, to be honest, a bit pay to win. And truthfully, a lot of people paid to get Max nerfed by buying Berserker to show how overpowered Max was.
That's kind of a... I don't know if that's a hot take or you're just ignorant, because I'm friends with Landwhale, and I think that's who this is targeted at. I don't think he paid for that. I'm not sure. And you don't really have to, just because you have it and can demonstrate that it makes it overpowered, doesn't mean that you necessarily even paid for it. I never paid for it once, and I can demonstrate how it's fucking stupid. I think you're trying to make a connection here that isn't necessarily
Which it isn't really without
true.
Berserker. Realistically, a lot of those vets
But yeah, Max is a good player with a max even before Berserker was absolute cancer, and it was still stupid. So I think this isn't a very good take.
trying to farm with a max if they didn't have a simp engineer just repairing them all the time from their Twitch stream, or if they didn't all shill out 60 quid to again prove that max was overpowered, but they wouldn't have been able to make that point as easy, although I do agree with them. Okay, here's another hot take. Vehicles are a great crutch for casual players who don't want to learn infantry mechanics, and that's okay. Some people don't have the time to spend 500 hours learning infantry gameplay. There's nothing
it doesn't take 500 hours to learn unless you're just totally not involved at all in playing FPS games. It doesn't take 500 hours to learn the infantry mechanics in this game. That's a gross over-exaggeration. I think people crutch on vehicles because they come into the game and find out, they're non-FPS players that come play this FPS game, and then they get into the game and they find out that there's a skill gap in infantry. And like most casual players, once they find out there's a skill gap, they find ways to circumvent that in any way they can. And in a lot of ways, it's just, I'm just going to sit in a vehicle all the time. And I'm going to play the game for 10,000 hours and hide in a vehicle the whole game.
you're going to gain from learning that knowledge other than being able to enjoy the game more. Truthfully, there isn't even that
Isn't that the point?
much overlap for the skill that you learn in PlanetSide compared to other fast-passion shooters.
I mean, that to me makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, because I'm probably like 10 times as good as I was when I started playing this game, and it's from the skills that I learned in this game. That's such a weird take to hear, and I hear this one actually quite frequently, is that the skills that you learn in this game in infantry combat are not transferable. Well, I think the only people who say that are the people that actually just have no transferable skills. So, like, an example would be someone who sits in a Zerg 24/7. If you sit in a Zerg 24/7 and basically sit around with your thumb up your ass and lose every gunfight that you get in with someone, yeah, I understand why you would say that you have no transferable skills, because no part of sitting, like, you can't transfer the skill of sitting in a 96 plus fighting 10 people at 3 o'clock in the morning to another game, really. Because when you go play like a Battlefield game or something, you don't get into a lobby with, I don't know, on a 64-player server, you don't get into a lobby that has 32 players on your team versus 4 on the other team, or 3 on the other team. That's not how the games work. Now, this game has no balance whatsoever, so, and there's way more of these casual players, so they constantly make this a thing, constantly needing to have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to 1 odds to do anything. And then they're the same people that go ahead and tell you, they will tell players like me who are fighting 1 versus, or the odds that are 1 to 3 to 4, 5, 6, 7, and whatever, that the skills for the game are not transferable. I mean, I guess when you have no skills and your ability, you'd never learned anything really about the game, you're not very good at it, and you hide in a Zerg 24/7, and you need to have pop always around you to do anything, yeah, then I guess it makes sense that you think that the skills aren't transferable at all. It makes sense. You don't want to learn the gunplay of the game, which is, some basic form of my weapon gets more inaccurate as I fire and don't release the trigger. That's pretty much almost in every game. Positioning is a universal skill, and I think this game is one of the best teachers of positioning because it presents you the most dangers and vulnerabilities that you have to mentally go through the checklist to run through. It teaches you how to read movement on the map. It teaches you so much if you're just willing to learn. But again, like I said, and he brought this up earlier, if you're unwilling to put the time in to learn in a game that has a skill gap, I guess you could say that you don't have any transferable skills. So fair enough.
So if there's barely any overlap within fast-passion shooters, there's definitely no overlap in video games in general, nothing that you're going to gain in real life at all, why the hell would you want to spend so much time getting good? Especially if you're only playing the game for a few hours a week, and just expecting them to gleefully accept getting...
I mean, that's just a shitter take. Only a shitter would deal in those terms. Sorry.
Mowed down with no counterplay is frankly just silly. Patches which
Yeah, but you have counterplay, and it's called learning the game.
do address and add things to the vehicle meta and all of that is absolutely fine. Just because it's casual doesn't mean it's bad. I'm going to annoy people.
Just because it's casual doesn't mean it's bad. I agree with that, but only to a certain extent. Because, I mean, if you want to hear my take on Zealous and the casual thing, go watch the analysis of a loser video. I think I did it last August or September. I go into that big time.
Even more now by saying that the Combined Arms update arguably was either a negligible or arguably good change. The Combined Arms update didn't negatively decrease the population of PlanetSide 2 relative to any other month. Personally, I feel like vehicles shouldn't be super oppressive towards infantry, which before the Combined Arms update, from what I understand, they were. Now at the same time, there are things with the Combined Arms update which probably shouldn't have been changed, like the resistances to shooting from behind vehicles, and I understand why people are specifically annoyed at that. But the other thing about the Combined Arms update is it was meant to make the vehicle fights a lot more stalematy and have a higher time to kill so that you aren't just like barreling down a lane. And truthfully, there's some argument to be made that that's actually a good thing. Now again,
well, the problem is it doesn't end up being a good thing because this game's all about numbers. And the more you balloon the time to kill on things in a game about numbers, that multiplies the effectiveness of the numbers. And then everything just becomes about numbers. Because everything just becomes fighting blobs of HP. That's why I feel like the time to kill for like infantry combat and stuff is actually, well, with the 2x headshot multiplier, it's perfect because it allows the more skilled players to win more often because you do have more HP and the other guys are not leveraging that advantage and stuff. So I feel like there's a good balance to where if there's a really good player who plays really well and demonstrates mastery, you can fight multiple people. I like that about the game. That's one of the redeeming qualities of the game. But it does get to the point where numbers just become more blobs of HP and it becomes impossible for you to do anything against. Now, there's been people in the past who have stated they want, and it's from shitters too, they want to double the amount of HP in the game because they feel the time to kill is too fast. If you doubled the time to kill in this game, first of all, it would make your engagements against good players that much worse because when you increase the time to kill as a shitter, you don't, all of the things that you already don't do well are magnified further. Your ability to aim, track, all that stuff is effectively doubled, and the player that you're fighting against already is way better than you. So no, increasing the amount of HP that everyone has, I don't think should really be a thing in this game. And for obvious reason. Now, in a game that has actual balance, like in terms of team sizes and stuff, I think that works for lower numbers. But when you get into these big numbers, everybody just having a big blob of HP kind of just makes it. Number one, it increases that skill gap that you see. It makes the good players better, and it makes the bad players worse. Which is why I think a lot of people come into this game. And this game has a slower time to kill than a lot of other shooters that maybe they play for the most part, which is objectively true. I don't know why people try to argue this. I think that's part of the reason why they struggle so mightily, because you can't take an automatic weapon and get a 3 or 4 bullet kill on the body or wherever they're aiming poorly at. I think that's one of the big reasons why the skill gap is the way it is in the game. And when it comes to vehicles, I understand the frustrations. I used to have a lot of friends who played vehicles who just became disinterested in playing vehicles after it. And a lot of those people stopped playing vehicles. They might not have quit the game, but I know plenty of people who they did quit the game because of it. And I think Sirius tried to make this point in one of his recent videos, is that, when he was strawmanning all the individual patches that people had complained about over time, it's like, this one individual patch, Combined Arms Initiative, didn't kill the game. Yeah, but it caused a lot of people a lot of frustration, and it made a lot of dedicated, diehard fucking people that played in that way or with that part of the game, it upset them, and it comes from design choices from people who don't play that part of the game. Like, I think the changes that were made were done by people who don't even necessarily play fucking vehicles, which I'll always have a problem with. Is if someone, and a lot of vehicle shitters make this mistake too, is they try to comment on infantry balance. It's like, that's how you get fucking retarded changes in your game. Is you have sections of the player base, like dumbass vehicle players who can't play infantry at all, talking about infantry combat, like what needs to change in infantry combat, or it goes both ways, which is why I try not to make generalized sweeping statements about vehicles, because I think the vehicles are pretty shitty in the game. Honestly, there's some like oppressive vehicles in small fights and stuff, but other than that, like, I'm not out here complaining about Hesh every day. I mean, the most I complain about is like, why the fuck is there 2 Liberators in this 1-12 fight? Shit like that. And I think I think vehicles are too available, honestly, still. So, but other than that, yeah. I think those people complaining have a right to complain, and just because, I'd have to go see. I'm not exactly sure when Combined Arms Initiative roll out, but for the longest time, I've always known that the reaction to that, especially from vehicle players, was intensely negative. So yeah, whatever.
And I do also think that harassers right now are not in a good place, but I don't want to say that the Combined Arms update.
Yeah, but where do you guys want harassers to be? Because there's people that want harassers to just be like these massively fast mobile tanks that just fuck everything up on the battlefield and like invalidate tanks and shit, and you get to farm infantry on them and shit. Like, I don't know, man. I've watched my friends play harassers and stuff, and it's like, it's a fucking like dune buggy Jeep thing that's going head to head with like literal tanks and shit, and you're farming infantry. Like, I think they just want their cake. They want to have their cake and eat it too.
Overall was just universally bad. But again, this is based on an update that I didn't personally play. This is just going off what I've learned. I'm definitely not done yet. There's a few other subsets of the community that I'm going to piss off in this video, but let's start off with the bolting community here. Personally, I think that in a client-side game like this, having headshots, one-hit kill is a bit overpowered, especially if you can stealth as well. And especially,
I mean, I think the problem is it's the cloak. Being able to one-hit kill out of cloak is cancer. I think I'll include a clip here of what does Rel think about infiltrators. Let's hear what Rel had to say about infiltrators, and this is within the last year.
What do you think about infiltrators? Give me your hot take on infiltrators.
Infiltrators,
class
I
by
think.
Class.
Oh, okay.
Why not?
Sure. Yeah, why not? That'd be fun. Infiltrators, I think, could stand to. So I don't have the same sort of opinion about infiltrator as I think many players who have problems with that class is.
Invisible one-shot kill class.
I think that it's fine to do that personally.
Excuse me.
especially if right after you do stealth there's no delay before you can shoot realistically. In combination, all of those things that just make bolting a bit too overpowered. And you motherfuckers are lucky.
It's the whole kit is what it is. Because even back in the day, even like 2014, 2015, even back then, like, the bolter was oppressive. Like, when we were playing in 6v6, like, if your team had a shitty bolter, there was no way you were going to win. Like, whoever had the better bolter, it made such a huge... Like, having Troy as our bolter basically meant that we could go into any game and have, like, a really high chance of winning. And, you know, sometimes it was... They would need 2 bolters to fucking fight Troy, and he would still win. Just the utility that the class provides and the kill power that it has when played by someone competent, you know... But the problem is, too, even a shitter playing incompetently can be very frustrating and annoying. So Infiltrator, that kit has always been insane. Yeah, it's the whole kit. And, you know, the motion spotter nerf that it got wasn't really that big of a nerf. You know, I'd get rid of the motion spotter completely. I just have darts, just only darts. Maybe, yeah, probably the cloak. No, you can't equip a sniper rifle with a cloak. or when you're cloaked, you can't. There's a massive delay or something. I don't know. I don't think it'll ever be changed, honestly. But for the people still defending that kit, it's kind of crazy. Like, people that argue for that kit, yeah, and I don't know if he says this or not, but it's crazy. Like, it's crazy how brain dead that kit is when you're a good player and you're playing that kit. You're like, this is so fucking stupid. Like, when I come back and play with friends, sometimes we'll be playing our normal stuff, and then I know Brodo will go play Bolt. He'll get pissed off at something because he has absolutely horrible shit reg for his entire life. But he'll go play Bolt, and he's just laughing maniacally. It just making fun of how stupid it is the whole time, and it really is. You guys are lucky that more good players don't just play the shit, man. You don't understand how lucky that, number one, most of the good players don't play the game anymore, and number two, they don't abuse the shit harder.
Lucky to get away from it as long as you have. Okay, so next I want to Russell the Jimmies of the Vets. Getting a massive ego over this game is absurd. People sometimes forget how unbalanced the classes are with PlanetSide 2, and so, you know, running around with 33% extra HP and then having a 2KD as a heavy isn't particularly impressive.
No, it's not. Having a 2KD as a heavy is not impressive at all. It's kind of embarrassing, to be honest. That's why I make fun of 2KD heavies. But I think the point he's trying to make is that the classes are unbalanced and stuff. Like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. Like, everybody wants to complain. You've heard me over and over again. Like, you can't complain about the one guy farming you as heavy when you have fucking 13 people against him. Like, you guys can complain about fucking heavy and shit when the game is balanced in any other way whatsoever. Sorry. Like, when you stop needing 48 plus people, or in my case sometimes 30 plus people to take a base from one guy, that's not my fucking problem. That has nothing to do with the class. When you stop needing that many people to do something very basic in the game because you have no gun skill, no positional ability, you're just shitters, think you can dump pop on shit. When you stop having to use that, when the game is actually balanced in terms of like equal numbers on both sides, then I think you can complain about asymmetrical health. And to still be complaining about heavy assault in its current state is like the most bizarre thing ever, man. Like, especially coming from shitters who are actually sometimes even worse playing the class.
I understand that there's utility to other classes like Infiltrator's detection and reviving with a medic, but within 1v1 situations from an IVI score perspective, Heavy Assault's obviously going to do way better. Likewise, everyone look.
I think that's totally subjective too, because you put a lot of good players on Infiltrator and what that kit's capable of. There's a lot of good players that can also go just easily play Light Assault and Medic. I don't know, man. And Heavy Assault doesn't bring nearly as much utility as the Infiltrator. The lanes and unfair fights that you can set up as an LA compared with the fucking carbines and shit compared to LMGs, and the positional advantage you have with LA, the ARs on Medic plus all the team utility that you have. This seems like another take from someone who is not that good at the game, I do see this a lot, where they complain about the class balance and stuff, where it's like, just because you don't know how to play the game and you're not very good at doing like the main objective of the game, doesn't mean that there's something wrong with the classes, or one is inherently more powerful than the other. I've said this a lot. Like, when I would go play LA, it's like, oh shit, I'm playing heavy, I'm like 4 or 5 KD. Oh shit, I'm playing LA, up constantly running 7, 8 KD. Like, oh, it's brain dead. Or when I'm running medic and just shitting on these heavies with my 845 RPM AR that just shits on them, that has no inaccuracy whatsoever. It's like, we're just really playing a different game, and that's the problem when you listen to people who don't understand the reality of what's happening in the game.
Looking at their EPEAM score to figure out like who's best when there's massive differences in people's hardware, and of course refresh rate monitor.
I mean, stop being poor. Like, it's 2023, and you're playing an FPS game on a 60 hertz monitor, on a fucking crap shitty laptop that has no frames. That's not my problem, okay? Like, grow up, make more money, be an adult, And if you don't make enough money, further your education, try doing that. And if you don't have enough time, I don't know what to tell you, but you can't sit here and complain that people that make more money than you or have fucking more time to put into the game, that invest more time in the game, are somehow not better than you. This is more this casual dog shit where they're upset that everything is not like gaming socialism. When they log into the game, they're not the same as everybody else, and everybody isn't put down to the same. It's just not how it works. It's not how it works in life. It's not how it works in these fucking games, especially FPS games for the most part.
Monitor, types of equipment, even things like your posture, it's all going to affect how much you can aim. There's also, of course, latency, packet loss to take into consideration, which again, a lot
Not my problem.
of people forget about. And truthfully,
I don't forget about it. It's just not my problem. If that's a problem for you, then I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, if I farm you, the entire goal of logging in to play this game is to log in to farm shitters. That's what this game is, and that's what it always has been. So yeah, it feels good to log in and farm shitters. That's the point of really any FPS game is ideally what you want to do.
if you were to put yourself side by side with people that have put in not only a similar amount of time to you, but also a similar amount of dedication, I don't think that your results would look anywhere near.
That's also another really subjective statement or assumption that it's just like someone sitting next to me. You take some casual shitter and you give him as much time as I have in the game, and you give him the same hardware, he's going to be the same player. That's a really fucking ignorant, stupid take. Okay.
It was impressive. And again, a lot of people forget about those factors and they just like to call other casuals shitters. Remember, there's not.
Well, because they are shitters, and there's a class of player that you have a lot of experience with. Is you bring them up. You bring the people into the game and put them in your little stupid fucking platoons and shit. Don't teach them anything about the game, and make them play in a certain way that doesn't train them or prepare them to fight actual players. And then I get to come into the game and farm those players, and farm my KD and my stats and all that, make my stats look better from farming those shit players that you provide me. And that provides me, that provides dopamine, right? And that's the point. So you manufacture the shitters that I farm, and that's the hierarchy. There are some players that just exist to be farmed, and you'll find them in every game. Know your role, okay?
Not that many transferable
Yep, they're shitters.
skills between PlanetSide 2 and other fast
I mean, again, you're just full of shit.
Russian shooters besides the aim mechanic, and then of course in other video game categories there's no overlap at all. Maybe you could make an argument for positioning, but again, because of the client-side nature of the game, there isn't.
Every other networked game works relatively the same way. There's peeker's advantage in every networked game. I'm tired of hearing about this client-side shit like it's some unicorn that only exists in this fucking game. Like, shut the fuck
Many
up.
things that you can learn
Stop using that as an excuse for everything. Why you suck dick at
from
the
this game that are massively transferable to other games. And you know, of course, a lot of
And you can tell these guys don't play any other games, and if they do play any other games, they suck dick at them, because this is only a mindset that someone who sucks dick at every other FPS game would take.
these people that you're killing, they're only playing for a few hours a week, and so I don't know if it's a good idea
And they don't get to expect the same results as me, and they get to be farmed by me. Seems fair to me.
to have a massive ego about being good at this game.
And I'll have whatever I want about it,
Okay, so let's pick
because I know that it hurts your feelings and it makes you mad. But you don't do anything about it because you don't have the intestinal fortitude to actually want to get better at anything. So that's why I can constantly come back to the game, and I can watch my friends like Seth came back. He's been streaming the game for the last week. Just walks back into the game after not playing for a year and fucking diarrhea dumps all over these shitters. And it's the greatest thing ever to watch. And they get mad at it. You know they're fucking pissed off. You know they're mad. And you know someone like this guy would get pissed off watching it. But what are you going to do about it, man? You're not going to do anything. You know why? Because you exist to be farmed. Period. End of story.
piss off even more people. Personally, I feel like doing ops is kind of akin to smurfing in other games. You get a bunch of people with 1.5 KD average, you know, high IVI score, high headshot ratio.
What happened to the standards of like what's good stats anymore?
Ratio. Obviously, most of the time you're going to be playing against noobs, and in those cases, it's easy wins. That's the real easy mode of PlanetSide 2. Oftentimes,
Yeah, and remember last year when you found out when you went from that environment, and that's the only environment that you played in, and then you made a big fucking pissing fest about having to play against actual players in a 1v1 Outfit Wars tournament. I remember that. It's weird that you're talking about that now, how it's like a crutch. Like it's a crutch for shitty players to sit in Zergs 24/7. Weird. I think I made that point almost a year ago.
their success is just a function of their skill and isn't innately because of their communication. Even if they want to pretend that's the case, oftentimes it's just because they want to play Milsim. It isn't because innately they need to do it. It's often the
That's true. Most people that play Milsim, they don't communicate things that are even relevant. They're just role playing that they're in the military, and the things that they're communicating are not relative. Like you take some of the best players in the game and put them in a squad and voice chat with each other, and they might barely say anything because there's not that much to communicate if you're not role playing. And most Milsim players are absolutely fucking terrible players mechanically.
case that the people that want to play more try hard and get good at the game also want to do callouts. It isn't that you need to do callouts. I never really talked
You don't have to, but callouts are integral in any team-based. Probably one of the more important aspects of team. Shitters want to talk about teamwork all the time, but you know, most shitters are cognitively and mechanically blocked from participating in any higher form of teamwork other than, you know, using their med tool on someone or reviving them or throwing them ammo. Honestly.
talked about this in the past, but during Lane Smash I saw this firsthand. We didn't do a single training session for the entire of Lane Smash, and we totally stomped VKDZ and the other team which did training sessions. Most of us had never played before.
Now they must be absolutely terrible, whoever that is. I don't know, because that's the same shit that you talked about Lane Smash, and then I'm not even gonna. This is a whole nother video that I think I've already done about all this Lane Smash shit with Zealous.
Before together, and some of us actively disliked each other. Of course, a similar thing happened in Outfit Wars, but we don't really see many people talking about it. I'm also gonna.
Oh, well, I talked about it, for sure, and yeah, all those videos that you took down.
As in a balanced hot take, I think that we should be decreasing the amount of chain kills and the uptime of these very skilled players. We probably.
But why? Why in a game that is so stacked against the individual player? Why?
Probably should decrease the amount of medkits that you can have relative to what they are right now.
Why?
I also think that they shouldn't be as viable. Medkits are
Why?
frankly always the best choice right now. Personally, I would also look at things like Sensor Shield and Assimilate, and perhaps even Survivalist. Having things that keep your uptime against other infantry high means that very skilled players can get a higher KPM than they otherwise would be able to and chain kill more people. Of course, I understand that would be way less satisfying for very skilled players and they would hate that. But this is
Yeah, but you don't understand why that's fun because you're not good at the game and you don't understand that. So Of course those things aren't important to you because you're looking at it from the other side. Let me listen to that part again. Not the volume.
higher KPM than they otherwise would be able to.
And that's not necessarily just those implants that make that. You can give a mediocre shit player all the same things and they might. It's like that ignorant ass statement he said before about if you give the regular shitter all the time that I have and the same equipment, they're going to be the same. It's just ignorant.
And chain kill more people. Of course, I understand that would be way less satisfying for very skilled players and they would hate that. But this is a hot take video, so there you go. I now want to say something that's.
I mean, if you're just saying it to say stupid shit that makes no sense and get a reaction, I mean, fair enough.
Really gonna annoy casual. A lot of people like to use cheating as copium, but people also like to use faction imbalance as copium as well.
Those people have been around since the game started, and it's always the most ignorant, least informed PlanetSide player is the guy who plays one faction for 10 years and is like just standard dog shit. Like This stuff that they say is just is the most inane shit.
There may be slight differences in terms of air-to-ground capability, but truthfully a lot of that I just talk about because you guys want me to. The truth is none of that really matters. All that really matters is just getting good at the game by learning infantry mechanics, and that's like 50% aim and then like 50% the rest. Okay, as a final hot take here, I want to say if you were to take away the last 3 years of game development and you were to just put all of that money, you know, the salaries of a 15-player average studio, and you were to just put that into marketing, you know, Facebook ads,
I'd say the last 7 or 8 years. I'd say maybe not. I'd say the end of probably 2015. I would cut it off. We need to stop everything before PS4 code merge and Construction's first release. Right after Hawson release, that's it. Cut it off. No more development from idiots. That's my line of
ads, targeting
demarcation.
groups that have a lot of crossover, things like Battlefield, maybe Wild of Tanks, War Thunder, BattleBit. Honestly, I think the owners would have had a way better return on investment. You can see that with the recent fortification update. For 99% of people it did nothing, but they did a successful marketing campaign and so it actually increased the population of the game. Despite the update genuinely not being that impressive, they could do one big update a year with a massive marketing campaign and it would, to be honest, do way better. They just do some fan appeasement things, you know, once a year, throw a bunch of money during the same time so it doesn't look like the community is super pissed off with the game because, you know, they get gaslighted for that month into thinking that there's
Not a month. Try it. Try the Osher gaslighting. A year. 1 year. 1 straight year of gaslighting directly from the former lead game designer.
going to be a change in PlanetSide 2. And yeah, they probably would have done way better. Also, here's another hot take. I would have liked to see the devs play around with a slightly higher time to kill and a slightly lower headshot multiplier so we can just see how that looks like. The reason I shield for Nanoweave to get removed is because it didn't apply to heads. And so with Nanoweave functionally being on most of the good players, you essentially had a higher headshot multiplier than you do now. If the devs went a step farther and just baked in those resistances to all of the classes by default and also to the head that you would normally have on Nanoweave, I just would have liked to see how that worked out.
It would have been terrible for you because you're bad. And it would have been worse for every bad player in the game for what I talked about earlier. When you increase the health of the players in your game, the skill gap goes like this. The worst players that have to spend more time doing the things that they're bad at don't benefit from that. And I can tell that you don't understand anything about the Nanoweave stuff. But thank God there's creators like me who spent years talking about it. And there's actually a specific video, RE making Nanoweave passive, why it's fucking retarded, and we shouldn't have done that. Now, the problem that comes is when you have an idea like that requires some work on the back end and some actual thinking to implement and execute correctly, and it's given to incompetent morons who actually fuck up the entire thing. Because they try to marry the work and the thought and the stuff from the people who know the most about the game and play the game the most and perform the best in the game. They try to marry that with anecdotes from shitters who don't know anything, or input from casuals, or people who don't understand basic things. People like Boil Down in TG, who has 5,000 hours in the game and doesn't understand how the gunplay mechanics work. Like, so you can't listen to these people. You can't marry those two together. It's like oil and water. It doesn't work. And when you try to do that as a designer or a developer, you fuck up.
If you look at other popular games like Warzone or Fortnite or whatever, they have a 1.5 headshot multiplier. PlanetSide has a 2 headshot multiplier. And so yeah, I'd like to see them look at that. I know they never will, but it's something to mention in a game that doesn't have matchmaking. Having a high skill ceiling relative to skill floor.
You can complain about matchmaking when there's any balance whatsoever in the game. There's no balance. And the shitty players and casuals outnumber the good players 10 to 1, if not more. You can't complain about matchmaking in a game that has no team balancer.
Probably isn't the best idea, although at the same time you do want to have really well thought out infantry mechanics that make infantry gameplay satisfying, and I don't know if changing the time to kill and headshot multiplier may take away from that, but
it would 100% take away from that. If you nerfed the headshot multiplier in this game to 1.7, I would never play this game again. Never.
something that I would like to see the game devs try out. And again, on that hot take specifically, I might be wrong. It's just something I would like to see the devs try and just see how it works out for a month. These devs, in my opinion, are
Yeah, but what would happen to that is they talk about doing it and propose something, right? And then all the people who know what the fuck they're talking about would come out and say, they would give you dissertations on why it's fucking retarded. And then people like the person who wants that in this game would be like, well, how do you know? You haven't even seen it. Well, unfortunately, I mean, as you mentioned, the other games that we're talking about, there's a reason why a 1.7 headshot multiplier makes sense in a Battlefield game, right? Or the majority of them. Do you know why? It's because the damage models of the weapons are fucking higher. So your relative headshot to body shot damage is not that crazy. Like, you're talking about... in most Battlefield games, the fucking bullet to kill for a standard automatic is like 4 or 5. Sometimes 3. 3, 4, or 5, right? So a 1.7 multiplier gives you, you know, what? 2 shots to kill? Something like that. So you're still killing twice as fast, but overall it takes less bullets to do it. So, like, lowering the headshot multiplier in this game makes no sense. And even if you lower the headshot multiplier in this game, the same people that kill you now and farm you with good accuracy and headshots are gonna kill you the same way because you're still bad. You still can't understand the weapon mechanics. You still can't put a burst of 5 shots into somebody's head. And they still can. So no matter what you do, it's not going to do anything. And what it really does is it takes away any fun and ability an individual can have against a group of players, which I know you will never understand because you don't understand that. And I understand why you don't understand it, through all the reasons that we've talked about in this video.
total pussies. They could change things, put it into the game, see how it feels, and then take it out if it's bad. They spend so long thinking about things instead of just taking action and doing stuff. Over the last few years, if Rel was a little bit more stoic, didn't really care as much as what people thought, he could have been a lot more adventurous in his balance changes and actually tried more things, listened to the community.
No, he's tried a lot of stuff, and it's all shit.
Without getting his ego hurt as much, it just would have been a way better game. The devs are so scared of looking incompetent that they end up being incompetent because
they are
they
incompetent.
end up never listening to the feedback. In the comment section, I want to hear likewise similarly crazy, unhinged
They listen, they selectively listen to feedback. They listen to feedback from shitters. They don't listen to feedback from people who literally tell you what's going to happen.
hot takes. It can be about PlanetSide, it can be about the devs, it can be about the PlanetSide 2 Reddit, the Discord, whatever you want to say. As always, it's been a pleasure. Have a wonderful week. I'm out. GG. Bye-bye. If there's not at least one thing here
Alright.
that you strongly...
That's it for me. Yeah. That's the video. That was fun. All right. See you guys later. It's just a depressing state of affairs.